Nepal is undergoing one of the most unexpected political transformations in South Asia. A young leader, a fractured old order, and a foreign policy that is being rewritten in real time. At the center of it all is Prime Minister Balendra Shah, popularly known as Balin Shah. And now a question is emerging across the region. Is Nepal abandoning its old balancing act or redefining it entirely? For decades, Nepal's foreign policy was built on a delicate equation: India on one side, China on the other, and Kathmandu carefully tilting between both depending on political winds at home. Governments changed, ideologies shifted, but the structure remained the same. That structure is now being tested, not by ideology, but by a new kind of political confidence, a leadership that is trying to treat both neighbors not as competing patrons, but as equal strategic partners. This is the emerging doctrine of Balin Shah's New Nepal, a shift away from alignment politics and toward what his government is quietly calling strategic neutrality. But neutrality in Nepal's geography has never been simple, because neutrality is not just a policy choice here. It is a survival strategy shaped by location, dependency, and history. Nepal sits between two of Asia's largest powers, India to the south, China to the north, and for years, its diplomacy has been shaped by this reality. India has dominated trade, mobility, and cultural exchange through an open border system. China has expanded its influence through infrastructure, investment, and strategic outreach. Every Nepal government has been forced to manage this imbalance, but Balin Shah's approach signals something different. His early diplomatic moves suggest a deliberate attempt to avoid the traditional tilt cycle that has defined Nepali politics for decades. Instead of prioritizing one capital over the other, Balin Shah has begun engaging both simultaneously, equally, and visibly. Envoys from India, China, the United States, the United Kingdom, Gulf nations, Japan, and Switzerland were all brought into joint diplomatic consultations early in his tenure. A symbolic move, but also a strategic message. The message is simple: Nepal is not choosing sides, it is choosing structure over sentiment, investment over ideology, and partnerships over patronage. This approach also reflects a deeper economic urgency. Nepal is facing rising unemployment, heavy dependence on remittances, and pressure to modernize its infrastructure base. For Balin Shah, foreign policy is no longer just about diplomacy, it is about development survival. And that is where India comes back into focus, not as a rival, but as Nepal's most important economic partner. Under the new government, India-Nepal relations are entering a renewed phase of engagement. India accounts for the majority of Nepal's trade and remains its largest source of investment and labor mobility support. Remittances from Nepali workers abroad continue to shape the economy, and economic cooperation frameworks from hydropower to infrastructure are being expanded further. In fact, New Delhi has already invited Prime Minister Balendra Shah for a formal visit, and he has accepted. This will be his first major foreign visit since taking office, and it is being closely watched across the region. Because it is not just a diplomatic trip, it is a signal of direction. The visit to India is expected to unlock multiple agreements: health cooperation, Ayurveda collaboration, infrastructure development, and expanded trade facilitation frameworks. But beyond the paperwork, the real story is political timing. This is the first Nepal prime ministerial visit to India in years, and it comes at a moment when Kathmandu is trying to reset its global positioning. At the same time, Balin Shah is pushing a bold domestic reform agenda, one that directly connects internal governance with external credibility. His administration has announced sweeping structural reforms, cutting VIP privileges, reducing bureaucratic layers, restricting political influence in state machinery, and attempting to depoliticize education and public administration. The message is clear: Nepal cannot project stability abroad if it remains inefficient at home. But while foreign policy and reform dominate headlines, another development has sparked controversy inside Nepal's political system, one that touches the core of democratic freedom. A journalist, Roshan Pokhral, was arrested after allegedly using abusive language against the Prime Minister on a YouTube channel. The arrest triggered immediate backlash, not from traditional political parties alone, but from Gen Z activist groups that played a major role in Nepal's recent political transformation. Within days, protests erupted, statements were issued, and pressure mounted on authorities to release him. Activists argued the arrest crossed a dangerous line. That criticism of leadership, even harsh criticism, is not a crime, and that Nepal's democratic transition must not drift toward control of expression. The irony was not lost on many observers. Prime Minister Balen Shah himself rose to political prominence through digital platforms. As a rapper, a commentator, a YouTuber who openly criticized Nepal's political establishment. Now the system he leads is facing the same debate he once embodied. Where is the line between accountability and restriction? After 4 days in custody, the journalist was released on personal guarantee. But the episode has left a deeper question hanging over Kathmandu. Is Nepal expanding democratic space under new leadership or slowly tightening it under the pressure of governance? And this tension sits at the heart of the broader political shift underway in Nepal, because the same youth movement that brought Balen Shah to power is now becoming its most vocal watchdog. For Gen Z activists, this is not just about one arrest, it is about principle. They warn that Nepal's democratic renewal cannot come at the cost of free expression, and their influence is growing fast. They are no longer just protest voices, they are shaping political accountability in real time. For now, Nepal stands at a rare intersection: a young government with a strong mandate, a youth-driven political base demanding accountability, and two powerful neighbors watching closely. India is watching for stability and partnership continuity. China is watching for strategic balance, and Nepal is trying to redefine its position between both. So can Nepal sustain a foreign policy where it does not have to choose at all? Because in this new phase of Nepali politics, neutrality is no longer passive, it is active. It requires engagement, constant calibration, and political discipline. And for Balendra Shah, it may become the defining test of his leadership, not just to change Nepal's foreign policy, but to prove that a small state can redefine its strategic identity without being pulled into the orbit of larger powers.